Hello friends! Let's start with the big one. NVIDIA has just announced what it says is the next big leap in real-time rendering, DLSS 5. And according to the company, this is the biggest breakthrough since real-time ray tracing first showed up. Now, as you can imagine, the reaction has been polarizing, to say the least. DLSS originally launched back in 2018 as a way to improve performance through upscaling. Then it evolved into frame generation, and now NVIDIA wants to push it even further. With DLSS 5, the big promise is real-time neural rendering that adds more photoreal lighting and materials to a game on the fly. Basically, NVIDIA is pitching this as a way to narrow the gap between traditional game graphics and something closer to Hollywood level visual effects. According to the official announcement, this feature is expected to roll out this fall. And I don't know about bridging the gap between rendering and reality, but it's definitely creating a new divide in the gaming community. NVIDIA says DLSS 5 already has support of some of the biggest publishers and developers in the industry, including Bethesda, Capcom, Hoda Studio, NetEase, NCSoft, S-Game, Tencent, you name it. So clearly a lot of major companies are interested. But at the same time, a lot of people are extremely skeptical. On social media, plenty of players have already criticized the feature for making characters look completely different, sometimes changing the mood of a game, and in general just giving out this weird AI filter vibe. On top of that, it also sounds like you'll need a pretty serious setup to run it properly. So in my opinion, no, this doesn't look like the kind of a feature that's going to become a universally loved new standard overnight, especially for games that don't want to chase realism that hard. That said, for games that do want that ultra photoreal look, especially big budget titles backed by major publishers, this is probably going to be very attractive. Either way, it's another clear sign that companies like NVIDIA are trying to normalize AI-assisted graphics in gaming. Whether players fully accept that in the long run, that's another question. Now, it's been a while since we talked about the legal fight between Krafton and the co-founders of Unknown Worlds, the studio behind Subnautica. But now there is a pretty surprising update. Very quick recap, the founders sued Krafton after being pushed out of the company. Krafton claimed they had stepped away from their responsibilities and weren't focused enough on the studio's next game. The founders, on the other hand, say they were really fired because Krafton wanted to avoid paying out a $250 million bonus tied to a milestone for Subnautica 2. And now, according to Kotaku, the judge has ordered Krafton to reinstate former CEO Ted Gill and give him full operational authority over the studio and the release of the game. And that's a huge development. The court apparently concluded that Krafton's reasons for firing him were basically a pretext, and that the publisher violated the contract put in place when it acquired Unknown Worlds. And honestly, the story only gets worse from there. One of the more bizarre details is that Krafton's CEO was reportedly involved in a month-long effort called Project X, which was allegedly aimed at finding ways to avoid paying that conditional bonus. Weirdly, according to a report, that plan even involved using ChatGPT multiple times to help draft messaging for fans about the leadership change. Which is certainly one way to use AI, I guess. Now, the court still hasn't ruled on the money side of that lawsuit yet, but let's be honest, this is already looking really bad for Krafton. The optics alone are awful, especially for a major publisher that has acquired studios before and will probably want to acquire more in the future. Because after something like this, any studio entering acquisition talks is going to be thinking a lot harder about autonomy, control, contract language, and of course, payout protections. And honestly, it just makes the whole thing look incredibly greedy. Yes, business is business, and everyone knows that. But this goes way beyond normal business. If the allegations are true, this looks like just bad faith, plain and simple. Krafton says it puts players at the center of every decision, but it's hard to square that with trying to cut out the people who helped build the studio in the first place. And beyond the legal side of it, the team and the game itself are probably going to pay the price too, just because of the reputational damage from all this. Also, quick thing, if you don't know who I am, my name is Alex, I'm a game producer, and I'm here to help you get caught up on everything that's going on in the video game industry. Moving on to Bethesda, and the fact that it has finally revealed the long-awaited second DLC for Starfield. It's called Terran Armada and it is set to arrive on April 7th. According to the official announcement, the expansion will bring a new questline, new characters, locations, enemies, and a bunch of other additions. But that's not all. Alongside the paid DLC, Bethesda is also releasing a major free update called Free Lanes. And that one looks like it could actually be a big deal. From what's been shown so far, it will add intra-system free flight between planets, more space encounters, new customization resources, and expanded New Game Plus options. Oh, and Bethesda also announced the game is coming to PS5. So yeah, they've clearly not doing just one thing here. They're trying to relaunch the conversation around Starfield completely, and in a big way. And a lot of people are already calling this the game's big second chance, which honestly makes sense. Bethesda is throwing several major moves together at once. Platform expansion, a substantial free systems update, and a new paid story DLC. That's a pretty aggressive attempt to widen the audience and fix some of the friction points people had with the base game. And to be fair, I respect the effort. It could work. But turning around a mixed reception is never easy, and I still think there is one awkward part of this whole rollout. Just a few weeks ago, Todd Howard basically said that this update would still be more of the same Starfield, and if the game didn't click for you for the first time, it probably won't click now either. And that's a weird thing to say when you're also trying to position this as a fresh start, because if the original approach didn't fully land, then giving the game a second life usually means rethinking how you talk about it too. So personally, I'm a little confused by the messaging. If Bethesda really wants this to be a comeback moment, they probably need everyone involved to be on the same page, including Todd Howard. Speaking of Bethesda and Todd Howard, it looks like the company is finally ready to really focus on The Elder Scrolls 6, nearly a decade after the game was first announced. Or at least that's the impression Todd Howard is trying to give in a recent interview with IGN. He didn't share any actual details about the game itself, but he did say that the development is progressing, and that the project is now the main focus for most of Bethesda game studios. He also admitted that he regrets announcing the game so early, which honestly is probably one of the least surprising things he could say at this point. Because yeah, announcing a game that early creates massive expectations long before the studio was ready to really show anything meaningful. At the very least though, this does suggest Bethesda is starting to recognize some of the mistakes it made, both with The Elder Scrolls 6 and with Starfield. Right now though, this is not a revelation, it's more like a reassurance, a way of telling people yes, the game is still happening and yes, we're actually working on it. So in that sense, it's partially a progress update and partially, and I think mostly, the damage control. And now a surprising rant from another game developer. Former Overwatch director Jeff Kaplan has a message for people who complain about games they were never going to play. And the message is, shut the f*** up. According to IGN, Kaplan said this during a recent livestream while showing off his new project, The Legend of California. At some point, the topic of feedback came up and he went on a pretty blunt rant about people criticizing games they have no interest in playing. That rant included lines like, if a game comes out and you don't want to play it and you've never played it, shut the f*** up, no one cares. So yeah, not exactly polished. And honestly, it really sounds like Jeff missed out on the media training phase after leaving Blizzard, because saying something like that into an open mic is just asking for backlash. Now, I do understand the frustration. If you're a developer and you've poured years of your life into a project, it's obviously annoying to see people dismiss it without even touching it. That part I get. But the problem is, everybody is a potential customer. Even if someone says they'll never play a game, that doesn't mean that can change later. I think most of us have at least a few games in our library that we once swore we'd never touch. I definitely do. Back in the day, I used to say I would never play League of Legends, for example. And then, not long after that, I ended up spending years playing it. That kind of thing happens all the time. Your friends recommend something, word of mouth spreads, the conversation shifts, and suddenly you think, you know what, maybe I will try it. So when you say f*** you to people outside of the target audience, that's just not smart at all. Yes, every game has a target audience, obviously, but that doesn't mean you should openly insult everyone else. The internet can absolutely be toxic, no argument there. But saying stuff like this does not improve anything, it just adds more toxicity to the pile. With the acquisition of Warner Brothers still not finalized, it looks like the company is already cutting down parts of its game development staff. According to Insider Gaming, the Montreal studio has now been hit with another round of layoffs. So far, the outlet has highlighted 3 confirmed departures: an associate narrative director, a level designer, and an associate producer, all of whom announced they were leaving through social media, and each of them had been with the company for more than 6 years. And the concern is now that this may not be the end of it. There could be more layoffs on the way before the acquisition is fully wrapped up, especially since the restructuring process is still ongoing and probably won't stop until ownership is fully settled. The problem is Warner Brothers is still trying to actively make games through all of this, and every time experienced people leave, the execution risks go up. That's especially true when the people leaving aren't brand new hires, but staff who've been there for most of a decade. At a certain point, you're not just trimming headcount, you're losing institutional knowledge too. I hope the company understands that. And to wrap things up, after smashing all kinds of records with Expedition 33, Sandfall Interactive is already working on its next project. They're just not ready to say what it is. Games Radar Plus tried asking Sandfall's lead writer during GDC where she would like to see the series go next, especially if the team stays in the same universe. But she basically shut it down and said she couldn't talk about that stuff, and apparently joked if she did, she would have to kill them, which, to be fair, is completely understandable. Studios have every right to keep future projects under wraps, especially when expectations are now this high. Still, it is interesting that they didn't outright shut down the idea of Expedition 33 becoming a bigger franchise. And honestly, based on my limited knowledge, there are plenty of directions they could take it. They could do a prequel, a sequel, a spin-off, or even go with the Final Fantasy route and tell completely different stories under a broader creative umbrella. So there are options. The bigger question is whether Sandfall can follow up such a huge breakout success with something just as strong the second time around, because now the expectations are going to be way higher. And that's all I have for you today, folks. Let me know in the comments down below what do you think about this new tech from NVIDIA. Do you think it's going to be a new breakout success, or it's just more justifying the AI slop? Are you still looking forward for the Elder Scrolls 6? And if you're going to give Starfield yet another chance? As usual, if you want to know more, all links are down below. And of course, clicking the like button helps this channel a lot, and I personally highly appreciate it. And thank you for making it this far. And with that, Alex is signing off for today. Cheers!